Thursday. And we're live at 5. Live at 5 on Thursdays. Barry McGuire's Creative Real Estate Education. We talk about all kinds of things creative. We're working toward our next event, our focus workshop on Saturday, October the 17th. Creative Combinations. It's a half-day workshop. And it's all about how we fit together various strategies. So when we talk creative strategies, we're talking about rent to own and fix and flip and agreements for sale and options and wholesaling, joint ventures, how all those things fit together. And we get a lot of questions. People say, well, we don't quite understand how that works. So I thought for today, if we had some talk about financially, what does it really mean to take a situation and combine it creatively? If you were acquiring a property through one strategy and it wasn't going to work out quite financially, what about if you hooked it up with another strategy, and could you make it better? And so those are always fine to talk about in theory, but what we're looking to do today is to talk about some of the details of actual deals or really great examples where we can look at how the numbers fit together, and so that you can see why combining creatively makes better financial sense and you actually make more money. So as always, we have Wayne Hillier running the show. He's our IT boffin. That's Wayne's word for today. Yesterday I called him a firebrand, a young firebrand.
And
there he is, the young firebrand. Yay!
Do I have to Google again? Do I got to Google boffin?
You have to Google boffin and see what that means. And leading the show will be Andrea Workington on the illustrating and the examples and the why you can fit creative strategies together. And I guess this is an expansion of what we always say, which is if you understand the strategy, you will recognize the opportunity. But if you understand the strategies in the plural, you will definitely see more opportunities. So Andrea, now you've got a bit more experience than Wayne. I'll have to find another thing to call him as a less experienced person. I'll figure that out and Google that too. But all of us started out somewhere. None of us started out as creative real estate experts. And so you've been at it a little bit longer. I'd kind of like to hear when you maybe first had an aha moment about, hey, wait a minute. This particular situation isn't going to quite work very well the way it is. But what if I fill in the blank about how you combine two things together? When did that first come to you in your real estate career?
That's a great question. So I would have to go back to the beginning days, back in 2009, when I took a bunch of creative real estate courses. And this is why it's important to educate yourself so you have a full understanding of how these things fit together and why you would do one thing over another. So it's about these creative combinations. And as some of you may have heard my story before, part of the reason why I was really drawn to agreement for sale was because I could get houses with not much money. And that really suited me fairly well back in 2009 when I'd run out of my own money after buying a bunch of rental properties with my own money and then joint venturing. And then even with joint ventures, not all your joint venture partners can always qualify for mortgages. So it's always good to know if you've got a joint venture partner with money but can't qualify, what can we do with that person if you don't want to qualify for the mortgage either? So
that's interesting, isn't it? You've got your JV partner has money. I mean, he's got money, but he can't qualify anymore because of those financing rules. I mean, you want to access that money. Okay, so what do you do?
So this is why we love agreements for sale, Barry. And sometimes with these agreements for sale, we get in for very little money. And sometimes we need a little bit more money, but we don't need that mortgage qualification, that pesky little thing that creates a lot of work for those of us who have property and, collecting leases and mortgage statements and all sorts of documents. So one of my examples is doing an agreement for sale. And let's say you need a joint venture partner to put in that money. So I don't know at what point my documents that I sent to Donna gets uploaded. But did you want me to start going over a potential deal, Barry, or you just want me to tease people with the
we should just tease them and say, this, you will be absolutely blown away by what Andrea's figured out. The numbers are amazing. This works, that works, they all fit together. It's so great. But we're not telling you till October 17th. That would be so mean, wouldn't it? After we've kind of told people we're going to give them some details today. I mean, we're going to give lots of details and have examples and maybe do a role play or two on October 17th, because I know everybody loves that. But yes, you did send some calculations and some examples to Donna. So why don't you start with the one that is most appropriate, because I have two here, it looks like. Start with the one that sort of is the first one, and let's talk numbers and the deals.
Yeah, so if we go over the agreement for sale deal first, which might be the second one I sent, but just as we're talking about agreements for sale, if that's okay, Barry?
Yes, let's do it.
So some of you may have seen, I did like a Facebook Live I think it was last month or maybe August, about a townhouse in Ponoka. So I have some numbers for you here. The purchase price at $215,000. And the seller only wanted a down payment of $10,000, even though they had about $100,000 of equity. They only wanted 10. So half of that was going to go to the realtor, and the other half was going to go to the seller. And so I took a friend of mine with me out there. And so she wanted in on the deal. And I said, okay, it's $10,000 down, and let's kick in another $5,000. So we have money for closing costs and reserve fund. So a total investment of $15,000. So we're buying it for $215,000. We're only putting in $15,000. We've got 4.5 years left on the mortgage at an interest rate of 1.45.
What?
Yes, amazing. Hey. Now it's on a variable, but still. But what we did is we looked at the mortgage calculator, and we saw on her mortgage statement how much principal would be left owing at the end of the term. And during the 4.5 years, we would be gaining $30,000 in principal pay down, which is fantastic. So if you do some quick math in your head, we're putting $10,000 to the seller, which goes against the purchase price. We're going to gain another 30, but my investor, my joint venture partner, is putting in $15,000, and we're let's say cash flow is break even. We never make a dime on cash flow. All we're doing is looking at principal pay down. On principal pay down alone, we have a 200% return.
Yeah.
Over 4.5 years.
$15,000, $30,000 back, that's 200%.
200%. So if you divide that per year based on 4.5 years, that's 44% a year. And if a joint venture, when we're splitting that 50-50, it's still a 22% return per year, right? This is crazy. Like, it's fantastic numbers. So then we looked at the monthly income and expense. So we have a principal and interest payment of $673, taxes of $175, insurance of $50, and condo fees of $275. So we're left with $1,173 as our expenses, and the rental income is $1,400. So we had cash flowing $227 because we're going to self-manage, right? So that 227 could go to repairs and maintenance, obviously. That's why I never count on it in these types of deals. We're just going to let that bank account, grow by the 227 every month. And then if something needs to be fixed, there's money there. So even if the property never increased in value, at the end of the 4.5 years, we've got $40,000 to our benefit, the $10,000 we put down plus the $30,000 in principal pay down. It's almost 20% down. It's very close to 20% down. 20% down would be $43,000. So if either one of us need to get a mortgage, we need to put $3,000 down in 4.5 years. That's if the property never went up in value. So how do you beat that?
How do you beat that? My goodness. My goodness. So folks, as we talk about combinations, what did we combine here? So this was an agreement for sale combined with a joint venture. Agreement for sale with a joint venture. And we wanted to make sure that we talked about numbers and details. So Andrea has actually sent us her calculation. She worked all this out on paper and sent it to Donna. Donna, do you have plans to do anything with what Andrea sent? There we go. Okay, Donna has shared. That's it. You're not seeing any more. That's what she's pretty stingy with her sharing. I don't know.
Oh, dear.
So Donna will share that. So that is really, 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 really fantastic. Now, would you keep the rent at $1,170, or sorry, would you keep the rent at whatever the rent is of $1,400? When you do one of these, you pretty much say, okay, it's $1,400 for 4.5 years, or do you adjust rent?
We'll adjust rent along the way, because one of the things that we may choose to do as an exit strategy is when I have a property with 4.5 years, typically what I'll do is I'll do 2 years just as a regular rental, and then I'll look for a rent-to-own client. So I have a built-in exit strategy, because condoized townhouses are not my favorite thing to hold long-term. So I would rather do a rent-to-own on it, but not right away. So I want to get in there and I want to rent it for a couple years and then see where the economy's at. And, if values have gone up, then even better time, because really rent-to-owns work better typically in a rising market. So yes, because we're kind of like stagnant at the moment where I am, it's not the same for everyone across Canada, but where I am, I'm just being a little more conservative when it comes to rent-to-own.
Yeah. So then if you set it up on an RTO, rent-to-own, at the 2-year mark, now we have a third creative strategy.
Exactly.
Now a third creative strategy, adding this in. So let's see. Yeah. Without earning a dime in price rise, no equity increase, you might make a little bit more on the rent. Now, we didn't look for the potential RTO numbers at the 2-year mark, but based on your experience in putting together these kinds of deals, or if this is actually a deal from your portfolio, are you able to talk at least briefly about how you would sell it, what the rent-to-own would look like?
Yeah, certainly. So let's just say, for example, 2 years from now, that the market's value was the same, but we noticed that it was more of a balanced heading towards a seller's market, which would be a good indication of a good time to do rent to own. So I would probably look at increasing that purchase price year over year, compounded about 3%. So let's just, for easy math, let's say the 2.5 year purchase price, if we were doing a 2.5 year rent to own to kind of match with our mortgage renewal, we would probably be around, let's say, 230, just to be conservative.
Okay.
So at 230, we've got an extra $15,000. on the sale price, right? So we're going to bump it up now to 300% return.
Yes, right.
And which is fantastic. And we're probably going to get a little bit more rent, because when it becomes a seller's market is typically after the rental market has heated up, and then people decide it's better, they're better off buying than they are renting because rents have gone up. So let's say on that place rents went up to $1,600, but my costs are still fairly similar. You know, it just makes it that much more. If you look at $200 a month, let's say, of extra cash flow over 2.5 years, well, 200 times 12 is 2,400. So you times that, we're at 4,800. So an extra $6,000.
Yeah.
So there's, you know, an extra bit of money that, you know, we didn't count on before, but it sure is nice to have, isn't it?
You know, it is nice to have. So you get the extra 15,000 on the purchase price, the extra 6,000 on the rent that you can now get for the reasons as you said. Now we're talking some decent percentages here, aren't we? Decent percentage.
Yeah.
We really are. And folks, I want you to take in and listen to what Andrea said about how she looks at this. She is taking a very conservative approach to everything that she talks about in this particular example. And so there's a few reasons for doing that. When you're in a quieter market like we are in Alberta, I mean, it's flat to negative in lots of different places in Alberta, where if you're in almost anywhere in Ontario, especially southern Ontario or southern BC, maybe if you're with Doug Robertson in Nova Scotia, you're out in Digby, property is going up, and it's a seller's market in lots of those different places. So Andrea is taking a conservative approach in a market that's not like that. And that's always a good idea. It's always a good idea when you're working with JV partners. I like to say when I am the finder and looking for a money partner, I say, listen, my joint ventures are conservative. That's better for you. It's better for me. And you know what that means is maybe we each have to put in a little bit more money and take just a slightly more conservative approach on all the numbers that we do and all of the approaches that we take. But taking that conservative approach when you're working with other people's money is way better in the long run for you. It helps with no surprises. And really, the last thing you want to be doing is going back to your JV and going, gee, those numbers didn't quite work out the way I thought. And, you're going to have to buck up. This is a cash call.
Yeah,
that never goes down very well. So a conservative approach, whether you're doing it because you're in a flat to negative market, or whether because you're a conservative person yourself, or whether because you realize that when you're working with a JV partner, no surprises is good, and conservative leads to no surprises. All of those are good reasons to be conservative. So I like that. So now we've got. Now we've purchased by way of agreement for sale. We found a joint venture partner to help us with money, and we have RTO, rent to own, as an exit strategy. Is there anything else we can jam in there? Right? Or have we reached the limit on this one? Maybe.
We reached the limit on that one.
I think we're done with that one in terms of creative. But folks, what we're trying to get to here is that creative real estate investing is different than what we all do and what we all love, and what's a big part of all of our portfolios, which is long-term. We all have long-term buy and hold properties. I've got properties I've held for 25 years, and they're just ticking along like crazy. I love them. They're about 3 cents away from being paid off after 25 years. Well, they're not quite, because I refinanced once and it took some money out. But still, we do love long-term buy and hold, and we're not suggesting that every deal you do is a creative deal. What we're saying is that creative real estate strategies are a great supplement to long-term buy and hold. And if your long-term buy and hold strategy was to use your own money until you couldn't qualify for mortgages anymore, and maybe to access potential joint venture money until your joint venturers couldn't qualify for mortgages anymore. Sooner or later, you run into mortgage problems, and that's when creative real estate strategies really come along. But the sooner you really are able to understand what these creative strategies are all about, the sooner you'll be able to implement them and start seeing where those opportunities are. So we love buy and hold, but we think creative is a great supplement to buy and hold. And that's what this creative real estate education program is all about. Phew. Yeah. Okay. So that was one great example. Wayne, do you have any? Give us something, Wayne. Hit me. This is not boffin stuff now. This is not IT boffin stuff. This is you, you telling us about you and maybe an example that you can give the gang about how you fit strategies together and why it makes financial sense.
Andrew's was so cool. Like my first one here is like super short. It's like I did this and I made a little bit of money. You know why I love this stuff. I love looking at deals and rather than just being like, meh, it doesn't work. I love trying to figure out different ways I can make it work. It lights me up. My very first deal, my very first creative deal, my first damn deal, was probably one of my favorites. It was an agreement for sale. I was able to, I had a mutual friend with the seller, and he was looking for an out. He owed what his townhouse was worth, and he wanted to move. He wanted to get out of there. It needed a little bit of work. I think it was valued. He owed $150,000, and it was pretty much worth $150 at that time. But if it was renovated, there were similar units in the same complex selling for $215. So there's a bit of a spread there. Just he didn't have the money or the know-how to do all that. He just literally said the words, "I just want out." And so I made him an offer for what he owed of $150,000, and he agreed to 2.5 years, which wasn't quite enough for me for what I wanted to rent it long term. And at that particular time, I wasn't really comfortable with taking on a flip. The plan for that would be to rent it for a year and a half, do a little bit of renovations, put it on the market. I was just a little uneasy about it because that wasn't my area of expertise. So I ended up finding another investor who that was his area of expertise. He had a contractor on his team, and he saw an opportunity to take this property. He was going to rent it for a little bit as is, just to cover the expenses, and then he was going to renovate it and sell it for profit. So he could probably do this for $6, $7, $8 grand, just a little lipstick and rouge, and just put it back on the market and probably get 200 and make a pretty decent penny. The money down for the AFS was zero because the purchase price was exactly the same as what the seller owed. So I made him an offer to assign it to this new investor for $5,000. And we did up the paperwork. We signed it. He gave me $5,000 cash. He took possession of the property. It was nice and easy. The first deal, cash in hand, rapid cash. It was good. I loved it. Now, since then, that deal has gone completely sideways, and I've done so many other different things with it that have been super fun and amazing and stressful. But I'm just going to keep her simple for this one.
Well, yeah. So you have put together the purchasing by way of agreement for sale, and you exited with wholesaling with an assignment.
Yes,
that was the first stage of that particular deal. And so, folks, today we're looking at just giving you some examples, and Wayne has a whole other backstory for that particular deal, but we're trying to keep this relatively simple to get you to see that if you can acquire a property, you can do a lot of things with it. And Wayne didn't want to do the rentals, and he didn't have maybe the interest or the capacity at the time. And you find somebody who does, it fits exactly with what they do and what they can do and what they like to do. So, that you have the classic agreement for sale where the purchase price is the amount of the underlying mortgage. It's not the underlying mortgage, it's an amount equal to the underlying mortgage. And that's wonderful. That's no money down. And as long as you can do something with a property that you get for no money down, because as we said before, and we'll say again, and you guys all know, getting a free property isn't necessarily a good deal. It can be a very bad deal. So, because it's free doesn't mean it's good.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry to interrupt you. I almost walked away from that deal multiple times. Like the very first time when he first wanted just to sell it outright, it didn't make any sense at $150,000. Why would I pay? There wasn't enough of a spread. And then I realized agreement for sale would solve that problem. And then when I couldn't get the terms that I needed, I'm like, oh, well, 2.5 years isn't enough for me to make any money. I might as well walk away. And then I'm like, oh, what if I add wholesale? What if I assign this to another investor? Maybe someone else is looking for it. So I put it out there, and sure enough, the investor, it's exactly what they were looking for. So it goes back to that whole creative combinations thing where, I almost walked away from it. And then I'm like, oh, maybe if I try this, maybe if I try this, maybe if I try this, right? And then I end up making money off of it. So that's what I love.
And something shows up. But, we can extend the teaching component of that deal by looking at it from your ultimate buyer investor's point of view, the guy who paid you $5,000. So he is also combining a couple of creative strategies. So you exited with a wholesale deal. He entered by purchasing a wholesale deal. So he bought an assignment, and he is going to exit with fix and flip.
Yep.
Correct? He's going to fix it. And that was his plan anyway at the beginning.
That was the plan.
That was the plan at the beginning. So folks, there you go. We have two different people in the same deal employing two different sets of creative combinations, both of which on their initial look-see were good. They may not have ended up that way, but initially those worked out nicely for both people. So there's a couple of ways to put together creative combinations in one deal as examples. And so what did monetarily, what do you think it was going to mean for your investor? He was going to pay you $5,000, take over a mortgage, do a $150,000 AFS deal, $5,000 or $6,000. Let's just call it $5,000. So it's $5,000 for the assignment, $5,000 for the renos, $150,000 for the mortgage. That's $160,000, $2,500 for closing costs. What was he going to sell for?
There were similar units selling for $215,000 at that time.
$215,000. Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh my. So that's $37,500 plus $15,000. Holy smokes.
It's a decent spread.
Too bad you don't like to do renos, Wayne.
I was I don't know. It was a little too much.
It was your first deal, right? It's your first deal.
First creative deal, yeah. And I'd only done a little bit of renovations, so I'd never done a flip before, so I didn't really want to take it on and mess it up. So yeah.
Oh, my conservative brother here. My goodness, we're gonna have to get you to step out of your comfort zone. Jeez. I tell you. Okay, well, let's fast forward. If that deal showed up today, with the experience you now have, if that deal showed up today, let's just use exactly the same numbers. How would you look at it today?
I probably wouldn't have assigned it. I probably would have done exactly, what the other investor that I assigned it to was going to do, was to rent it for a bit, and then maybe 9 months, 8 months out from the end of the term, I would have done some little quick renovations, little lipstick and rouge, and then put it on the market, listed it for $215,000, probably got $200,000, just to be done with it. And I would have profited after realtor fee costs, maybe $30,000.
That's what I was thinking. $25,000 to $30,000.
Yeah, plus my mortgage paid on. So yeah, maybe $35,000. Yeah, $35,000, $40,000. Would have been pretty decent for zero money down.
That would have been good. So I mean, in the beginning, I mean, if it was your first creative deal, I mean, it's just hard to work your way through the everything that is, and you do take a conservative approach to things. So this was a learning experience for you, learning with application of some pretty simple creative strategies. So you've got a seller who just wants out. Folks, those are the magic words. If you ever hear a seller say, "I just want out," you can say, "Hey, we can do this deal," or this is a person that we can talk to. And if there's a deal to be made, it's not going to get opposition from the seller because they just want out. That's very important in creative real estate. Motivated sellers are ultra important. Question here. Wayne, how would that AFS score on the analyzer?
Wow,
well,
Barry, did you want to introduce the analyzer, the AFS deal analyzer?
Did I want to do that?
Yeah.
Not me, Wayne. My goodness. I'm more of a theory guy. I leave the numbers to you and Donna and Andrea. Now we're gonna work with the AFS analyzer, deal analyzer somewhere along the way, but I'm not ready to do that today. Donna, did you want to take over?
That's a bonus that's offered for people that register for creative combinations. Awesome.
Did you guys all hear that? If you didn't, because Donna has such a beautiful, soft little voice. In the morning when she wakes me up sometimes, she comes, and if I'm snoozing away, and she whispers in my ear, "Sweetie, it's time to get up."
Okay, we're gonna.
No, I have one more story I have to tell. In her earlier days, Donna worked at a telephone answering company, and she had special requests from guys who had to get up early. I mean, they needed a call to get them up, and they wanted Donna to call just because of her voice and her manner, and they loved her to call in the morning. She had lots of like regular guys who wanted only Donna to make that call. Isn't that cool?
So.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the analyzer.
Yeah.
So, well, let's talk. Oh, firstly, the analyzer is a bonus for anybody who comes to our Creative Combinations Focus Workshop on Saturday, August 17th. That is a bonus that we've decided to include. But Wayne, I know you and Donna have worked way more on the analyzer than I have. How about if you tell us a little bit about it and how it works and why it's a good thing?
Well, it's a common question and theme hearing new students asking, is this a good deal? Right? They'll send all the information out and then they ask the group and the group offers their feedback. Sure. And I feel like that's a big roadblock or hurdle for new creative investors who are struggling trying to figure out, I've got someone who wants to do a deal with me. I just don't know if it's good. So I saw a problem and I decided to solve it. So what I did was I built an AFS deal analyzer. So basically it's based off a point system where you basically just fill out each section and how many points that you give it based on the matrix, and it will tell you whether it is a good deal or not out of 10. So for this deal, for example, that I just told you about, it would have been a 4 at best out of 10, right? So I wouldn't have touched it. And, throughout your real estate investing career, sometimes early on, you take 4s and 5s to kind of get started, right? Maybe you've only got 15, 20,000. So you decide to buy an apartment where maybe 20 years later, you would never touch an apartment condo, right? So it really depends on you and where you're at and what points you'd be willing to do out of 10. So at that particular time, 4 to 10, I'm like, yeah, it wasn't quite good enough. But once you add in the points for the opportunity points for what the opportunity that comes with an agreement for sale, like, for example, a reduced down payment, right? Or someone else carrying financing for you. That increases the opportunity has its own points. So you get to add on points towards that. So that went from a 4 up to like a 7 or an 8 because of the fact that someone was going to carry financing and I didn't need to put any money down. So it's super cool. Donna put it together. She put it into a nice little form where you can just fill in the numbers and click it and it tells you at the bottom. So we decided to add that for the Creative Combination as a bonus for anyone who attends. And hopefully that'll help people analyze deals a lot faster on the fly.
That's good. That's a really good tool to have, especially when you're getting started, when you're not really familiar with the AFS concept. You have something to help you along that asks you questions and you can give it information. And yeah, no, I think that's a wonderful. Good for you guys for doing all this calculating and figuring, spreadsheet. Good.
Trying to make it
All
easy,
right,
man. Just trying to make it easy for people.
Just trying to make it easy, Wayne, and you did such a good job of that. Okay, we have time. Do we have time for one more? We have to. Yes, we do. All right, we have time for one more deal. Andrea sent us another one located in beautiful Sylvan Lake, Alberta. Sylvan Lake is a big lake close to Red Deer, where Andrea lives. We don't have great lakes in Alberta. I think we have 800 lakes, and Saskatchewan, right next door to us, has 20,000 lakes. It's because we have no Canadian Shield here. We have just like prairie sloughs. I have great memories though of Sylvan Lake when I was doing my articles in Calgary. Our lead guy, Tom Walsh, Harkness, Pittman, Young, Clark, and Smith. That was where I articled in Calgary. He had a huge cabin out at Sylvan Lake with a big balcony overlooking the lake. And he was also president of the Stampede board. So during Stampede, we'd go out there and we'd shoot skeet off the balcony. And regrettably, I hate to say this, there was always a lot of alcohol involved, and it scared the poop out of me. Because, I mean, pull, you know, there's guys all around you. Anyway, Donna says I should be quiet and stick to examples. So, Andrea.
Yes.
The Sylvan Lake example. Maybe you could talk to us about Sylvan Lake. I'll just be quiet and let you talk.
Sure. So, full disclosure, I didn't end up doing this deal simply because we didn't have enough time. But it is an excellent example of the type of rent to own that I would do in this current marketplace in Alberta. So the rent to own clients had tried to purchase a house and they got hung up on the CMHC. So they got bank qualified, but not CMHC qualified. So the deal fell through and I spoke to them the next day. So the purchase price of the house was $425,000. They had $21,250, which represented 5% of the down payment. And so in order to do kind of a tenant first rent to own, an investor would need to put in 15% of the down payment, which is $63,750, plus closing costs of $2,500. The rent to own client had already done the home inspection and the appraisal. So that was great. So the total cost to the investor to get in on this deal would have been $66,250. Now, because interest rates are so ridiculously low, the actually monthly expenses between mortgage, taxes, and insurance were about $1,865. It would rent out easily for $2,000 a month. And so you'd have a little bit of cash flow on top. Now, because they're already putting in 5% down, and the reason CMHC declined them was not about the down payment amount, but it was about other things. So they had good credit, but just not enough credit to satisfy CMHC. I don't really need to collect a whole lot extra over and above the rent. So I put it as if I'm collecting zero.
Which is rare.
Which is rare. It's very rare, actually. So my rent to own pricing, year one, I added 3%. So my year one price only increased by $12,500. not very much. Year 2 price increased slightly more because we compound it. So the year 2 price would have been $450,000, well, $450,883 to be exact. So let's say these folks only took 1 year to qualify. Well, we have a price increase up front of the $12,500. We have principal pay down of $10,600. So that's a total of $23,100. So when you divide that $23,000 by the $66,000 that you put in, it's actually a 34% return on investment. So let's say that you didn't have the money yourself and you found a joint venture partner. If you split that return on investment, that's still 17% in 1 year. And this is with very modest, like we're paying full asking price. We're not even getting a discount on the value of the property. So these are very conservative numbers. And of course, we like to be conservative. If it went for a second year, our total price increase from what we purchased it for to what we sold it for is just under $26,000. And we have just over $21,000 of principal pay down for a total of just over $47,000. So over the 2-year time period, that's 71% return on investment. Or if you were to annualize it, well, let's divide it in half. Let's say you had a joint venture, that's 35.5%. And if you divide that by the 2 years, you're still earning 17.8% per partner. Well, really the one partner is it's infinity, but your money partner is still getting almost 18% return on investment with somebody who is super solid. So I was very impressed with these people. They had been pre-qualified up to $600,000, but they were only looking to spend $425,000. The husband has stable income, $200,000 a year, working up north in British Columbia. So it would have been the ideal rent-to-own clients. The big sticking point for me why I didn't go ahead with this is by the time I talked to them, they had to be out of their rental property in less than 30 days. And I knew there was no way I'm getting any investor qualified in like 3 weeks. I just can't do it, right? So I just didn't want to promise to them that I could make this happen and then let them down on it. So
Yeah.
I had to make that phone call and say, I'm sorry, I don't think, we can do this in time. So I think you're better just to rent, regroup over the next 6 months to a year, and then you probably don't even need me. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think this is such a great example for a whole bunch of different reasons. So, folks, we're in Alberta, which I'm kind of tired of saying we're in a kind of flat to negative real estate market, but we are. And the rest of you guys, almost everywhere else, maybe except Saskatchewan and parts of maybe Newfoundland, everybody else is doing pretty well in Canada. So this is a rent to own in a flat to negative market. And yeah, they work lots better in a rising market because, Andrea, in a rising market, instead of the modest 3% per year increase in the pricing, what's possible in a pretty vigorous rising market for that yearly price increase?
Well, I used to do 6% a year compounded in the better times. And it makes a pretty good profit. That's why it's popular.
Does make a pretty good profit. And I recall that in 2004, 5, 6, up until the oil price or the mortgage crisis, in late 2007, 2008, property values were going up 10% per month, let alone per year. So in a hot market, rent to own can make you a ton of money. So we're making decent money in a flat to negative market. So for anybody else in other parts of Canada, you're going to be doing the much more classic rent to own model where there are good solid price increases in houses, where properties can stand bigger monthly rent numbers. The cash flow on a rent to own can be just out of this world. And so, Andrea, how difficult is it when you talk to a joint venture partner who's going to come up with the $63,750. How hard is it when you talk to them and they say, so Andrea, can I make any money doing this? And you tell them, you know, conservatively, because you're a conservative person,
Yes.
conservatively, I think it's 17%. Do they tell you they're going to go invest their money in GICs at 1%? Or what do they say when you say it's 17%?
Well, typically I tell people it's only 10%. They want to under promise and over deliver, because
Right.
that's the problem. If you make your percentages too high, people just think it's a scam.
Yeah.
So I tried to tell people it's 8 to 10% return. And then, you know, for the average person who has no idea about this stuff, even 8% right now seems like a lot, because their GICs are getting maybe 1%.
Maybe.
So maybe 1%. So I just try to be conservative. Yeah, I think you know, if we do it right, we'll get 8%, or, you know, I just
want as much as 10. Oh my God.
Could be as much as 10. Hold on. But I just don't want to turn people off by saying a large number. So like in my first example, when I'm like, yeah, it's a 200% return, I would never say that to a joint venture money partner unless they knew me and had done deals with me before and knew that, you know, what I was saying was true. So.
Right. Hey folks, there's another lesson out of this. It's not just raw numbers. It's understanding how to present the numbers and understanding a bit of how people think. You know, there's a psychological aspect to this, and everyone knows once you get past that sort of 10% mark, then there's suspicion sets in. They think it's a scam. They think you don't know what you're talking about. They think there's something wrong with it, because where else are they going to make 10% on their money? There's nowhere else really. I mean, yeah, you could have bought Microsoft or Apple when they were $2. Sure, great, go and do that. But the conservative approach, yet again, will serve you better, because when that first JV deal ends, or when one of these JV deals ends, and you show up and go, well, happy to report we did better than expected. I know we said 8 to 10%, but it's 17%. Do you have any, do you ever go back to those joint venture partners, Andrea, and say, I have another deal? And if you do go back to someone who was expecting 8 to 10 and got 17, what's their reaction when you come back and say, I've got another one you can look at?
People are happy to be repeat customers. Yes. And like you say, Barry, most people have no idea how to even get 5%. So when you can give them kind of a safe and secure investment at 8, they think that you're, you know, fantastic.
Yeah.
To be able to provide them even more is just such a help. And to also hear how people spend their money. You know, it allows some people to do renovations in their home that they never would have been able to do otherwise, or take a holiday, or, you know, spend more time with their family. So there's so many benefits just beyond the dollars. It's what the dollars can do for them, which I think is really what joint venturing is about. It's not just about the money. It's what about the money allows them to be able to do.
Yeah. You know, I haven't really put much thought into that aspect of it, but it's part of the kind of win-win philosophy that we have, which is, I mean, you are trying to make it better for everybody you touch. When we do creative real estate, we're trying to make it better for everyone we touch, and that is, yeah, that's something else. Just because your JV partner has some money to put into a deal doesn't mean that they don't have aspirations and needs and things that would be better for them if they have a little more money. So yeah, it's another way of looking at it. Wayne, do you have anything to pop onto this?
Not really.
No, we're covering it.
I think you guys covered it all. I mean, I had another deal, but unfortunately, we don't have enough time. So,
well, Donna says, remember, Out of the Box program members can register for free for creative combinations. Yeah, folks, anybody who's watching this, if you did the Out of the Box event, if you bought the program, thank you, Donna. Good thing she's beside me here. If you bought the program, Creative Combinations was part of that program. It was a special add-on that we did, and we're doing what we said we were going to do by actually doing our half-day Creative Combinations on Saturday, October 17th. So yeah. What else do you want me to say to folks, Donna? That's it?
Yeah. Now you can just open.
Any more? Sorry, Wayne, anything?
Oh, no, I was going to say, I talked to two people recently, and they purchased the Out of the Box program with Corey and Tiffany after that event, and they didn't know Creative Combinations was included. I'm like, how did you not know that? That's a huge bonus.
Yeah.
Huge. So they went and signed up, but yeah, it's
and Donna is trying to reach out to Out of the Box people because everybody didn't hear it the way we said it, and some folks didn't hear it, and you had a couple of folks who didn't understand that. So we're just trying to make sure everybody does understand that if you bought the Out of the Box program, you get Creative Combinations for free, and of course, then you get the AFS Deal Analyzer. My goodness, we're piling stuff on top of stuff here, which is great.
Yeah.
So we're coming to the end of tonight's live at 5. If there's any more questions, pop them up there for us. In the meantime, I'm hoping that what you got out of tonight was that creatively combining various real estate strategies can really, really, really improve the financial performance of your creative real estate investments. It really, really can. So we only did a couple of examples tonight. We have quite a few more. We plan to have more examples and case studies coming up on October 17th. I'm working on doing some exercises because I think us just flapping our gums and telling you what's going on, not in Andrea's case, she's not a gum flapper. I'm more along the line. Of course, Wayne,
huge gum.
we want to try and give you some actual examples so you can take pen and paper and work on the numbers and just see how they work. I personally find that very valuable when I'm trying to understand how numbers fit together. So we're going to try and do some of that and put together a really interesting, informative, valuable program that will really pique your interest and I hope propel you towards putting more time and effort into understanding how these strategies work and how you can find opportunities when you put them together. So that's all I want to say. Andrea, what about you? You're going to be a big part of October 17th.
Well, I'm excited to share with people, as I always am, the straight goods.
Yes.
And really challenge people to get out of their comfort zone and just pick up the phone. Sometimes all you have to do is actually ask. You don't ask, you don't get. So keep making those phone calls. I know a bunch of people are doing the 6-week challenge. I don't know if that's over yet or not, but I'm hoping people are making progress. So,
well, yeah, they are. Donna is cracking the whip on all those folks. She is really getting them to make those calls. And we've had quite a few so excited 6-week challenge people who have actually made a call. And, that first call, I mean, it might be harder than doing the first damn deal. The first damn call is a killer. But people are doing it, and so I congratulate all those people. And so if you've made a call, make a few more calls because the more you make, the easier it gets. You're only trying to help people. The worst they can say is they don't want to talk to you, and the worst that you can find out is that there's not a fit and there's not a way you can help them. But got to get the first one done, folks. Get the first one done, everything else will follow. So. I think that's all I've got to say. The cat is calling for her supper. It's 6 o'clock. She wants to be fed. So got a little clock in her stomach. It buzzes around. So Donna, anything else? I'm signing off if not.
I'm good.
Donna's good. So we must all be good. Okay, Wayne, you can take us out. And Donna will be taking over the chair here for her 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock. You want to say anything about 7 o'clock?
If you have registered for the Out of the Box program, with him laying down here. Oh, rude. Okay. If you've registered, okay, that's good. If you've registered for the Out of the Box program and you haven't heard from me yet, send me a message right now because we're going to do a 7 o'clock catch up, 7 o'clock Mountain Time. Just a really quick catch up to make sure that you've got all you need, okay? Great, thanks. Okay, take the.
Take it away.